You ever thought about baby horses?
Not until right now.
Hello and welcome to Let Me Look That Up, the show where we use the internet to try to answer life's trivial questions. I'm Giovanni, and I'll be your host for today's episode.
I'm Adam, and would you look at that? I've already looked some stuff up.
And I'm Justin, and I'm not allowed to look anything up, so I'm just going to float on through.
So we've all been there. You're hanging out with a couple of friends and suddenly a random question pops up like, why do sheep's head fish have human-looking teeth? Ugh.
That's when somebody pulls out their phone to see if they can find an answer.
That's what this show is all about. Just a couple of friends trying to find answers to life's mysteries, like those teeth.
Finally, a friendly reminder. The three of us are at best hobbyists who are mostly relying on random stuff we found on the internet, and the internet must be reliable because how could 6 blog posts from people I've never met before and the 9-minute video of a guy in a horse head mask be wrong? He knows about teeth. Hey, Adam, I understand that you recently decided to stop chasing some waterfalls and have turned to hunting for a fountain?
You are creeping in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I took a deep dive on the Fountain of Youth.
Okay.
And quick question to kind of kick it off.
All right.
If I were to look, which continent do you think I should look for it on?
So you're asking what continent do we think that you should start looking for the Fountain of Youth on?
Yeah. You know, boots, gloves, out the door.
Yeah.
Don't know why I'm not wearing anything else, but those last two items.
All right.
I mean, you should, if you're going to start looking for something, don't you have to start from, where you are? So, North America.
Doesn't you just have him like look in his own backyard?
Yeah. Start in your own backyard. Just,
right.
Just start digging and it should be there.
It should be there. I probably have watched too much Stargate, and I would say you should go to Antarctica and start looking for it there.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, that would be a good place. I think you should start on.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be more than just penguins and ice. Seals and
yeah.
Oh, well, there is the scary monster from Thing, but for the most part,
that one is confirmed. Yes, that is there. To guard the fountain. No,
Fountain of Youth.
No,
yeah.
The Fountain, the movie.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Ongoing
just
segue
one
aside.
DVD copy.
Hey, Justin, you and I, let's take a second and think of all the places where we know that the Fountain of Youth mythology has existed. So definitely like Central and South America, and I guess Florida has had Fountain of Youth like legend around it.
Yeah, definitely the Caribbean. Like
Mhm.
I think Pirates of the Caribbean must have hit it a couple times.
Okay. Like Asia? Do you think Asia has a Fountain of Youth?
I want to say there was one of the Uncharted games had the Fountain of Youth in India.
And I feel like part of the Africa search had to have included the Fountain of Youth search.
Right, yeah. It's got to be under those pyramids.
Really, in my head, I get like the Holy Grail and all these other ones confused. All right, Adam, where would you start your search for the Fountain of Youth?
Well, I wouldn't, because I found it.
Oh, see, told you it was in your backyard.
See, it's the skin. If everybody can look at me, I have
It's a moisturizer regimen.
That's exactly right. Not going into my skincare routine, which is extensive. So where people have looked for the Fountain of Youth, we know obviously the most famous one would be...
It's the Spaniards in Central America, right?
Right. Ponce de Leon. In Florida, if you want to roll your R's, which I didn't, but almost did.
The rapper?
Is where... Right.
Flo Rida?
Right. So he has the legend of looking for it in Florida.
Okay.
Drinking muddy puddles, wandering around.
Oh,
yeah.
Gross.
And then, there's other places that it's been speculated. We're going to say India is a good indicator. They have their own stories.
So like independent of what we think of the Fountain of Youth, India has their own? Okay.
Yes, they have their own Fountain of Youth. The Fountain of Youth itself is even an older myth than the New World.
Are we back to the like constellation thing where the 7 sisters existed it was like the earliest story? This is the second earliest story, the Fountain of Youth?
Yeah.
Well, then which came first, the 7 sisters or the Fountain of Youth?
Yeah, well, there's no constellation to tie us to time, so we'll just have to go with the 7 sisters because we have some sort of clock to measure that with. So I always confuse a lot of different myths that are kind of all this like eternal youth thing. Is there a significant difference between like Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail and the Fountain of Youth?
Yes and no. That's what's interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that kind of the same thing? Is the Holy Grail technically the Fountain of Youth?
That's where it gets really confusing, or that's at least where clarification is needed, because the Fountain of Youth is older than that, but it
Okay.
does feed into that, because some of the most famous stories of the Fountain of Youth, or at least one of the most famous ones, comes from like an actual, I want to say a friar who actually had this story of the Fountain of Youth that then led into the, I guess it would be a friar because it'd be older than that, but
Like a monk?
yeah, there we go. Monk.
Some
Thank
sort of
you. That's the
Christian
word.
clergy.
There we go. Some sort of cleric. We're going to go
Yeah.
Christian cleric on this
all right.
with heavy mana points.
Hope he's got a level 2 healing spell because I think I just cracked a rib.
Fountain of Youth can heal that, my friend. Yeah, so the earliest one from Christendom is actually an even older story from Greece,
We just keep taking stories.
which is even an older story from ancient Greece. So Alexander the Great is the best example of the Fountain of Youth. He was obsessed with finding it. He looked in India for it.
Okay.
Ah,
There was the Greek gods, and one of them was about eternal youth and the Fountain of Youth.
Okay.
so it's in Greece.
So just like ever since we realized that we could
No.
die, we had this desire to find a way to not die. Okay. All right. So this leads me to another thought that just
Sure.
jumped in my head. Totally understand the appeal of the Fountain of Youth thing, like eternal youth. You know, I get it. But I've been watching What We Do in the Shadows, and now I'm tying in another myth of vampirism, which is kind of like it has kind of that same appeal of like never dying, eternal youth potentially, depending on when you get your bite and all that good stuff.
Put your bite on, right?
So is the Fountain of Youth myth, is that a eternal blessing or an eternal curse?
Ooh.
Ah,
I think that is a good pivot. That is the new question. That is
Okay.
the question. Is eternal youth a blessing or actually a curse? And
Yeah,
I have
it-
a lot to say on that.
Yeah, the vampire myth is totally like you're cursed, and then the Fountain of Youth is totally like a blessing that people will search for. So
Right.
yeah, I guess we're at the like.
Yeah,
Do you want eternal youth?
yeah. Is this fountain even worth finding? Don't go digging in your backyard anymore.
Justin, if you knew that your neighbor was a vampire, would you or would you not ask them to bite you?
I would probably just leave them alone.
So you wouldn't like bring over a cake and have like, like blood written on the cake?
No, I kind of enjoy the sunlight, so
Okay. Well, let's go more Twilight, where like you just sparkle in the sun. You don't
The sun.
you don't die.
Sparkling sunlight. Oh, that's a blessing. Oh, there we go.
I mean, yeah, if it's gonna be like that, then sure.
I'd like a time.
I definitely will not be hanging around a high school for 200 years, though. That
Okay.
just seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some other
Yeah, that's
ethical
where they
issues
got it
here,
wrong.
but
Yeah. Yep.
so you would be okay with eternal youth?
That was the sound of a screen door closing. So now that Justin has
Justin
left the
just
building
left.
with the screen door.
Let's go ahead and invite him back in. Go ahead and open the door again.
I gotta say no, because I mean, you live long enough, you just end up kind of alone, don't you?
All right. Yeah. I think that's
Mhm.
one of the normals.
I feel like it's having a dog, except now with people.
Explain that more.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
Like, dogs kind of only live for like 15 years. And so
Okay.
you get to the point where they get really old and it's kind of sad. And well, now that you have eternal life, guess what? You've experienced that with everyone.
Okay, so at some point, you in the same way that you outlive your dogs regularly, you'll start outliving the people that you know and love regularly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of don't
Gotcha.
want to deal with that.
Yeah, I think in my head, when I think about living forever, one of the appeals is like the power that and like knowledge that comes with it. And so it's really just this ego trip of like wanting to be super smart and super powerful. Though I do wonder, I've noticed that in general, when people get older, they get more and more like upset with technology. So if you're like 5,000 years old, would you just be like so over it?
Where's the stone tablet? Where's the stone tablet? Who moved this? What is this thing?
There's probably someone who drank of the fountain of youth 5,000 years ago who's like, I'm still mad at bicycles.
Can you believe the printing press? Oh,
Ah,
Gutenberg had it wrong.
kids these days.
yeah, that makes sense. Adam,
Well, my definitive answer, if I could,
yeah,
I've actually thought about this a lot, blessing or curse, fountain of youth. When I was researching, doing the deep dive, as
Okay.
we've said earlier, my answer is this. I think living forever, like the Queen song, it would be a blessing for 200 years and a curse for 800. I mean, just repeat that cycle.
okay. So like every 1,000 years, you start a new like it's cool again situation.
Every 1,000 years, it's cool. Here's why. 200 years. First 100, you're building wealth. You got your family. You're watching your kids, maybe grandkids. You're watching these generations of people. Technology's frustrating but still familiar. Then for the next 100, you're still happy because you're accumulating wealth. Maybe you've got a nice spot picked out. And then at some point, right around 200 years, it's going to turn. Life is going to feel like the dog that was left outside.
Right.
It's going to feel like that old rag. And then for the next 800 years, you're just going to not care.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit of a downer
Yeah.
for you. Maybe vampires aren't actually afraid of the sun. They're just in that 800-year like period of
Mopey period,
recovery.
right?
I'm like, I don't want to get out of bed.
But then at the end of that, something's going to happen that's going to wake you up from that. Like a car's going to drive by and you're going to, what the heck is that?
The new Maserati
Starts the
looks
cycle
so
over,
good.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You sit, and then and then you stumble into a diner and you find some new people. Maybe you hear some new music and it starts over. That's my answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like there's a secular thing of it being good and bad. I can't help but think about the end when you're just floating in space.
Right. Yeah, the eventual heat death of the entire universe. What
Except
happens
for you.
then?
Yeah.
Except
Right.
for you.
Where you're just folding your arms and you just breathe in and you go, well,
Can't.
I'll wait this out.
Which I guess if you go back to the vampire mythology of the sun kills you, then at least you have it out there when the world ends, because you'll be exposed to some sort of sunlight eventually.
That's true. Yeah.
Like everyone else, you will be, except yours will be more violent and intense and cool because you're going to burst into flames much sooner than everyone else.
Yeah. Wait, do you think maybe let's imagine that you somehow stay in the shadow of the moon as the sun expands and you get away from our solar system? Do you think if you end up in the light of somebody else's sun, it's a Superman situation?
Oh, right. So
Ah.
one destroys you, the other one gives you superpowers.
Right. So you show up with a green sun and suddenly you land on that planet and you have super duper vampire powers?
Well, I mean,
Michael Morbius now.
there we go. Right. then there's an explosion and you're looking for the Allspark. Right.
Oh, I see what I did. I stumbled right into a bunch of tropes. My bad.
Yeah. Well, it's that and portals are the two biggest tropes for that kind of story. But honestly, I think the blessing and curse of living forever, because the Fountain of Youth's like eternal youth, but also not the downsides of being a vampire. So you look great, you feel great. Maybe you have to bathe every, 100, 200 years if that's the story. Maybe that's how it works. But then the curse of the vampire is like, oh, right, I have to maintain by drinking blood and participating in nocturnal activities. Otherwise, you're gone and you stop being human and you're always chasing, it seems to me like you'd always be chasing being human.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go back to the Spaniards and drinking mud puddles.
Did he just show up in Florida and just start drinking everything he found on the ground?
That's got to be a fountain.
Didn't we cover that with the beer thing? It's just like, oh, let's just drink a mud
Beer
puddle.
or a muddy puddle, yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the weirdest things people have done in hunt of the Fountain of Youth or Eternal Life?
I am so glad that you have asked. The funnest ways that people have tried to live forever, or at least prolong life, my favorite one of all happens to be the first emperor of China.
Okay.
The first emperor of China, he had an elixir of life. He was obsessed with wanting to live forever, and he had lots of alchemists working on this elixir of life.
I think I know where this story is going.
The thing that they saw as hot science for them, buzzword hot science, would be mercury.
Does this mean they were wearing like thongs while they were doing the? Is that what you mean by hot science?
The visual of a bunch of people with monk robes and mixing vials and thong lines is absolutely awful.
Okay, so no, not that kind of hot science. The new science.
Right.
We'll go new hot science. Yeah, I got you.
New hot science. So for them, the buzz science, the cutting edge for them was mercury science. So they noticed the effects of like people would get paler skin or like it would change things, and they noticed that things would be preserved in mercury. So all of the elixirs that he wanted them to come up with, the basis of it is mercury.
Jeez.
So much mercury poisoning in the attempt to live forever. Everybody got mercury poisoning. In fact, where he's buried is still rivers of mercury. They don't want to open his burial mound and tomb when they refound it, the terracotta warriors, because inside is going to be rivers of mercury.
Oh no.
he basically Chernobyl did himself.
Right. He had a map of his whole empire and all the rivers and waterways, mercury.
Oh,
pretty cool.
Geez.
Liquid
That is
mercury.
pretty cool.
Super clutch, super deadly.
Wait, is mercury poisoning like the Mad Hatter thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So they were all crazy and then dead.
So, right. They were all
But really beautiful
fun
pale
towards the
skin.
end there. Right. Pale skin, crazy sense of humor. Short. So that's my favorite. The other one that I want, there's two that are also in that top three that I have. The other one there's the guy who was the discoverer of the Brown, the Brown Sequard syndrome. This guy, Charles Edward Brown. This is a French last name. I'm going to really butcher it. Sequard. He was a neurophysiologist during his discovery, because he's one of the guys that actually discovered
Mercury.
He was one of the leading researchers on hormones. And so he thought that hormones was the secret to living forever. So his idea of getting hormones was natural animal hormones. So he would take the fluid from animal testicles, dogs, and guinea pigs, according to the website.
Okay.
Mostly dogs and guinea pigs. And he would inject it right into his thigh.
So what about guinea pigs says long life?
I don't know. It doesn't say. It just listed as one of the animals he thought was cool.
Yeah, back to my pets not living very long. Guinea pigs have very short lives.
Very short. Yeah. And in fact, they're a staple of food.
Right.
For some people in South America.
Yeah. Okay. So bathing in mercury and injecting hormones from guinea pigs.
Right. Guinea pig testicle hormones into your thigh. Right.
I kind of don't want to go there, but should I mention that maybe it was because guinea pigs are horny?
That's true.
I mean, I'm super afraid to ask this question, but what does that have to do with living forever?
I don't know, but
progeny.
French.
Just like young and virile? Is that what you
Right.
said?
Yeah, maybe that's
full
what
of
he was
life,
thinking.
full of life, vim and vigor.
Yeah. The short life, but I guess that is another thing. Like the vampire mythology is like this live forever thing and never die, but the fountain of youth is not necessarily a live forever thing. It's just like return to youth over and over again situation.
Like Botox.
Yes, exactly like Botox. Boom, done. We did it. Podcast over.
All right, we found the fountain of
That's
youth.
a wrap.
There we go.
I do want to bring up the third one that I had for the living forever, because this one is the most interesting. Buddhist monks in Japan, there is an outlawed practice in Japan.
It's bad enough they outlawed it.
It was so bad that they outlawed it. And this is something you should, I say Google, but be aware, trigger warning, it's going to be gross.
Right.
Outlawed in Japan, Buddhist monks had a ritual of self-mummification.
I've seen that.
Diet.
Yeah.
So it's a gradual dietary ritual that takes about 3,000 days. So you are changing your diet, slowing down your body, basically self-embalming over 3,000 days.
That's just disgusting.
Yeah. And it's not just preservatives from chips, I'm assuming.
So the goal would be to die so slowly it seemed like you were never dead.
Right. And by the end, your body is actually
frozen in place then, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they would actually, towards the end of it, you would be like kind of like half buried in like the lotus position. So towards the end,
that's what
you're
I've
also
seen before. Yeah.
yeah.
That's
That's an 8-year process. I just did some math, not in my head because I don't do that, but on a calculator. That's 8.22 years
jeez.
of practice, I guess.
And that can't be like good for you because, you know, like drinking embalming fluids got to make you sick at least within a week, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
If not
yeah.
immediately.
I wonder what the pace. Well, I don't actually wonder what the pacing is. I don't want to find out.
I do, but I'm good.
Well, I mean, judging by what you said, the pacing is very, very slow.
Yeah.
So-
Right.
That's a lot of commitment. Like in 8 years, I want to be
Right.
all right.
And you're probably like in the very end sitting still for a pretty long time then, right?
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. It just makes me think, like, what's something that takes 8 years? Has anybody had anything that's taken 8 years to do?
I can't think of anything that I like intentionally worked on for 8 years.
Right.
I don't even know if I kept most of my jobs for 8 years.
Right. I'm doing a job for it.
Yeah, it was like medical school, and that's about it.
That's about it.
So I got a quick question, kind of going back to your first Fountain of Youth.
The mercury
story.
one or the like the mud
mercury
puddles in Florida.
The mercury one.
I gotcha.
So I kind of remember that gunpowder was kind of discovered with Chinese alchemists. And I kind of remember the story being about like medicine or something. Was that also a pursuit for the Fountain of Youth?
Yeah, it was gunpowder, and then like I can't like what is it? The sorcerer's stone. It was also an alchemist thing, or like turn gold like other things into gold. Or is that also have something to do with?
Oh yeah. Does alchemy have to do with
Is alchemy in the Fountain of Youth, or is it wealth? Or are we all just talking about the same thing anyway? Because in the end, we just want wealth and power and youth.
Right. Because in the end, we all want to come out of a creek and look fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of us aren't even got that going on.
Do we want to justify drinking that puddle we found in Florida? You don't look so good. It was a puddle in Florida. It was fine. I'm
All right.
perfect.
So we don't know if the alchemy practice in China was actually for chasing youth. So let's take a quick break and let me look that up.
LML to you, everyone. I wanted to take a few moments to share with you how you can help support the podcast.
Hey Tristan. Sorry to interrupt. I do have a quick question before we dive into this.
What's up, Giovanni?
So I noticed, like I've noticed for a long time, that for the logo that you have for the podcast, it's like a variant on an emoji. I'm wondering if there's a story behind that.
So when I first started this podcast, I started it as for a class.
Okay.
And I needed some artwork, and I was just looking through some different options. I didn't want to put my face on the podcast.
Right. It feels a little egotistical, right?
But I found this, and I was like, hey, that is a good-looking emoji. He's got
right.
like
You got the
that.
thinking guy one, right?
I added glasses to him just
Make him
to
smarter.
a little bit more unique. But I have to be honest, I've grown to really like him, and I kind of gave him a name.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get liking him. Like, he definitely is a very friendly character. But you named him?
Yeah.
What's his name?
His name is Lemmy. Like, let me look that up.
Okay. So, Lemmy.
Yeah.
You know, I think a thing that kind of endears him to me is he kind of personifies, like, all the people who have been on the podcast. Like, we're all kind of a little bit of a Lemmy.
Yeah, I'm a Lemmy. You're a Lemmy. Everyone's a Lemmy.
Everybody who's, like, left a comment ever is a Lemmy.
Yeah. I think we should all be a Lemmy.
Lemmies, like fans of the show instead of fans, we're just Lemmies.
Yeah, we should all be Lemmys.
Well, I'm happy to be a Lemmy. Sign me up.
Well, let me tell you.
Let me tell you?
Let me tell you. There are 3 ways that you can become a Lemmy. One is by telling a friend about the show.
Right.
And that, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. You
Right.
share it with a friend.
Just tell a friend.
Number 2
Uh-huh.
is share it with a stranger.
I'm imagining you just like walking down the street and be like, excuse me, sir. I need to tell you about a thing.
Which, if that's what our Lemmys want to do, they are totally welcome to.
Yeah, put it on your to-do list for the week. Tell a stranger. Hey, kids, don't talk to strangers. This is an adult thing. The adults can tell strangers about. Let me look that up. Kids, don't. Just tell your friends. Just stick with your friends.
Good PSA. But probably a less awkward way of doing that, so you don't have to approach someone, you could leave a review,
Like, you mean like on iTunes or something?
like on iTunes.
Okay. What is step 3?
Step 3 is giving us that cash.
That's a great way to become a Lemmy. Just buy your way in.
But seriously, when you support us through Buy Me a Coffee, it really helps the kind of the behind the scenes of the show. And we really enjoy doing it, and we really want to keep it up. And sometimes our mics break.
Or people charge you to have a website on the internet, apparently.
Yeah, apparently you have to pay money to have a podcast stay online.
Let me just break it down for reals here. We would love to do a weekly episode, but we can't afford to do that. So, like, everybody, let's band together and help Tristan become a professional podcaster so we can sit around the table and talk about random things every week for your listening pleasure.
Right.
Okay, all right. Where could they donate?
As we've said every episode, our Limmies can donate at Buy Me a
We've
Coffee.
never said our Limmies can do it. This is a brand new thing. We've never said. Okay, let me give it a go. As we've said every episode, you can donate at buymeacoffee.com/let me look that up. The new addition to it is, if you do that, we'll call you a Lemmy now.
Yeah, that's right.
Just to recap, make sure we got it all. 1, tell a friend. 2, tell a stranger. 3, give us cold hard cash.
Cold hard digital cash.
I think we covered all the ways you can support the show. If you guys think of some other ways to support the show, let us know. We're happy to take new ideas. But assuming that we've covered all the main ways that you can support the show, let's get back to see if I looked the thing up. Okay, so when we are talking about Chinese alchemy, some elements that we're familiar with European alchemy come into play. So the biggest one is gold. Gold plays an important role, and then like the mixing things together with heat and chemical reactions in order to create some sort of divine substance is like that's the same across the board. So in Chinese alchemy, the goal was to create medicine. So long life, youth, like the whole fountain of youth thing and alchemy were one. And there's this weird thing that I read that in some of the ancient Chinese traditions, the goal was to actually create fake gold because using pure gold was a natural element and it was like void of spirit. It was just like cold, dark metal. It wasn't alive like mercury, I guess. Gold was this dead, spiritless thing. And when you mixed it with other elements, other base elements, with the heat and the chemical reactions, it put spirit into it with the heat and that kind of thing. So this fake gold was better
Sounds
than
like a very passionate jeweler.
Yes, yeah. And so they did come up with some cool stuff. And it looks like the guy who invented gunpowder, or at least the guy who wrote about a material that looked a lot like gunpowder, was an alchemist. So it seems like he stumbled on it in his search for this, elixir of life.
Gotcha. So then it was a byproduct of the alchemist search.
Yeah, it was one of those stumbled on an invention. You're trying to find a thing that helps the military industrial complex, and you get these bouncy rubber balls instead. Something along those lines.
Right.
It is pretty ironic that in the search for eternal life, they found something that cuts it off pretty quickly.
Right. Well, I mean, they seem to be doing that a lot with the mercury and then the gunpowder. It's like a theme here. But yeah, I think you're right, Justin. I think there is a tie-in between alchemy, the fountain of youth, eternal life, and gunpowder.
I knew it.
All right. So from what I'm hearing, what we've learned today is everybody wants to live forever. And you're either going to find a way to live forever, muddy puddle, nice fountain, or you're going to make something to try to live forever. And you're either going to live forever or die trying.
And it sounds like nobody has actually gotten past the die trying part.
Right, the die trying. we all do that. So I think we started with where should we start looking for the fountain of youth
Right.
question. So do we have like an answer? Like what's the best, but if it exists and we were going to find a physical actual fountain, where would you recommend the listener goes?
Oh, just the Radisson down the street.
Okay, perfect. So just, search in your backyard because it doesn't exist. You might as well start where it's easy, right?
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
perfect. Okay, and then the second one question that you tackled for us was, is eternal youth a blessing or a curse?
Right. And I think the better answer is it's not a blessing or a curse. I think it's the pursuit of it is a blessing or a curse.
Huh?
Because if you're not finding how to live forever, you're going to die trying.
And then along the way, I think we ended up learning that mercury makes you crazy, and
Right. Mercury makes you crazy.
And
That's definitely a good one.
people will not be unearthing certain Chinese emperor tombs because they don't want to have mercury
Right.
poisoning. And
So-
then also that alchemy in China is related to gunpowder, which is related to the Fountain of Youth. Like it's all one big mess.
Right.
Perfect.
You got to find the Fountain of Youth or blow yourself up. And at the same time, you're going as mad as a hatter.
Justin, if you had a takeaway that we haven't listed yet, what's your like thing you learned today?
I do not want to try to live forever because I'm probably just going to poison and hurt myself.
Right. I mean, you're missing out on the chance to live under a blue sun and be a super vampire.
Also, the weird pet hormone thing. That was strange.
Yeah, I forgot about the hamster.
Injecting yourself with animal testicle. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Okay, yeah. And don't forget hamster testicles. But wait, there's more. The learning doesn't stop just because we've covered the topic for the day. You listeners, wait. You limmies have done the real work. Let's share a few with you. Here's Listener Lookup.
Today, our listener lookup comes from our friend Nathaniel. Nathaniel had a lot to say about the episode that we recently did about the Subaru stars and the Seven Sisters.
We got a little bit of feedback from other people saying that our constellation knowledge was pretty weak.
Yeah. Well,
If anybody wants to expand on that, we would love to know exactly specifically how we messed that up. But anyway, what does Nathaniel have to share?
yeah, if we get something wrong, you can correct us and we would
Like that's
welcome
half
that.
the fun of the show is to like find out how wrong we were.
Yeah.
So like pour it on, folks. Let us
Yeah.
know. Let's get back to Nathaniel's lookup.
All right.
All right, so for a little bit of context, we were talking about how it might be one of the oldest stories in the world.
That's
the
right.
stories of the Seven Sisters. And so Nathaniel found one that was from North America. Do you want to share a little bit about what he said?
Yeah. He said that he recognized the Seven Sisters from a movie that he had watched called Big Eden, and it was about indigenous American stories. And it was basically this story where children were dancing into the sky because they were lightheaded from hunger. The adults told them that they had enough food, but they ran out, and the children just kind of lifted towards the sky. And
So
he got this
out of hunger, they became helium heads.
Yes. He sent us this source from firstpeople.us that continued to talk about that one of the children looked back and became a falling star. And so as the other reached the sky, that those became what we know as the Pleiades.
Uh-huh.
And the way the story kind of pulls that all together is that every shooting star is recalling the story, but the seven stars are like this continuously shining band of dancing children.
Gotcha. Okay, so dancing children rather than Seven Sisters, which I guess sisters could be children, but not necessarily. Okay, did Nathaniel mention what tribe and what, like, any like specific information about that?
Yeah, so he said it was from a Onondaga legend, and it is a story about the Utquata.
Utquata would be the name of the constellation.
Correct.
Onondaga is the tribe. Okay, cool. Thank you, Nathaniel. You are maybe America's best Lemmy.
We have no way of actually ranking our lemmies, though.
So as we said before, we love pedantic listeners. Like, you think we're kidding. We're not kidding. We love pedantic listeners. So if you want to join the discussion, send us a message on our social media with the questions that you have in your head or the mistakes that we made. Tristan, have we ever made a mistake?
Probably.
Okay, yeah. So the mistakes that we've made, and or just tell us like the thoughts you have about today's topic. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Let Me Look That Up, or on Facebook at Let Me Look That Up Pod, or you can just go straight to our webpage, LMLTU, and leave a listener look up there.
Again, if you like the show, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. If you enjoy listening to us looking that up, You can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/letmelookthatup.
All our links are in the description or on our website, letmelookthatup.com.
Thanks again for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Let Me Look That Up. I'm your Biscuit Boy Giovanni.
I'm Adam.
I'm Justin, and I'm gonna live forever! Hey, my phone.
My phone.